I'll tell you, we are really fortunate to have Paul Misener from Amazon here, and in fact, he's so committed to this conversation that he's going to forego his own lunch, and you can see that he doesn't eat a lot of lunch when you see how tall and thin he is. But it is a distinct pleasure to welcome Amazon's Vice President of Global Innovation Policy and Communications. And what Paul does in his job is explain and advocate Amazon's culture and methods of customer-obsessed innovation. We've heard about that, and he's going to talk to us about how passionate that is, and he knows a lot about it. He's been with Amazon for 18 years, so he's one of the earliest employees and obviously pretty close to Mr. Bezos. Excuse me. Paul's an engineer, an attorney, and inventor as well, with a few patents. So interesting fellow, and again, we're delighted, honored to have Paul with us. Paul Misener. Thank you.
Hey, John. Thank you very much. Thanks, John. I'm not doing a plug for Coke, but it's good stuff. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for hearing me today. John asked me to come talk to you a little bit about how Amazon thinks about and goes about innovation. And as he mentioned, I've been with the company since it was a startup, 18 years plus now. And I can tell you that we have thought about and gone about innovation in the same way all this time, from startup to a fairly large enterprise at this point. And that's not accidental. It can't be accidental, right? You can't innovate for any duration accidentally. Anybody can innovate, right? You can stumble across an idea and it can turn out to be a really cool thing, good for consumers, good for businesses, whatever. But you can't continually stumble across things, right? Unless you're incredibly lucky. And so we have a method of innovation at Amazon. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that. From the outset, though, let me say that this is just the way Amazon does it. It doesn't mean that it's the only way, certainly, and it's not necessarily even the best way. It just happens to be the way we think about and go about innovating at Amazon. And I'm going to leave you also with 6 suggestions. Three suggestions are things that you could try in your enterprise with almost no cost or risk. It's just easy stuff you can try out, see if it would work for you too. And then 3 I will suggest are admittedly harder to do in other enterprises, but you could give these a try as well, and I'd be delighted to know if you do give them a try and how things work out. But again, it's not necessarily the best way to innovate. It's just the way Amazon does it. Now, how do we do it? How do we sustain it over time? Well, John was asking me earlier about my role at the company, and part of my role is an internal focused one in which I try to bring in the new people in Amazon as they come in and let them know how we think about and go about innovation. Now, at some level, these new people have self-selected into Amazon, so they already have sort of bought into the Amazon way by virtue of being hired and wanted to be hired. But at the same time, it's really important that as a company now with over 500,000 employees, that we're focused on maintaining that culture of innovation that we've had for so long. And so there is a method to all of this. So how do we do it? Well, for starters, we have, well, I'll give you an example of this right from the start. This is one way we innovate at Amazon. This is pizza, right? And the notion is this: whenever we face a new opportunity or challenge that needs innovation, we establish what we call 2 pizza teams to address the opportunity or challenge. And the notion is this, that the group of individuals brought together to address a new opportunity or challenge should number a number that could be comfortably fed by 2 extra large pizzas. So does that mean 4 people? Well, no, that's too much pizza. Does it mean 13 people, 14 people? No, that's not enough pizza. It's somewhere in between, right? And you might say, well, that's cute, but why don't you just assign a number, Amazon? Why don't you just say the group addressing a new challenge or opportunity should be 8 people? Well, okay, so what if this group is working along for 6 months or so, and they discover that they really need an expert in artificial intelligence? And there's a woman down the hall who has this expertise. She's available. She's interested in working on this project, but that would be 9 people. You can't invite her to join the team. Well, that would be stupid, right? I mean, that doesn't make any sense at all. Of course you invite her to join the team. But then you might say, well, why is there a cap at all? You could always bring in more expertise. Why not a roboticist, an economist, a machine learning expert? Bring them all in. Well, what happens is at some point, the team grows to a size where it doesn't function as a single entity anymore. It necessarily fragments and becomes multiple teams, and you've just defeated the purpose of having a single team. So the 2-pizza rule means that it's roughly somewhere on the order of 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11 people, somewhere in that order. And that group is designed to address a new opportunity or challenge. And so the 2-pizza rule, this is something obviously you can try if you have a large enterprise yourselves. It's the kind of thing that it doesn't work for startups, because startups by definition are probably already 2-pizza teams in their entirety. But for large enterprises, give it a try. I mean, what's the harm in trying to get a small group together to focus on something new? All right, well, obviously there's a lot more than pizza that goes into innovation at Amazon. We have at Amazon, we have a group of tenets, principles by which we operate. And we call them the leadership principles, but don't be misled. It's not just the leaders in the company who have to abide by these, it's everybody in the company. And so here they are. These are our leadership principles. There are 14 of them. If you gave me a piece of paper, I could probably write them down in about 45 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. But I certainly can't keep 14 principles in my head all the time, and it's including in the context of innovation. And so today I'm going to talk to you about 3 of them and how we view these 3 to be particularly important in the context of innovation at Amazon. But these leadership principles are really baked into how the company operates. They guide, for example, our hiring process. I mentioned before that there's sort of a self-selection process by new individuals who join Amazon. They are tested in the interview process against these leadership principles. We're also evaluated annually based on these leadership principles, how we live up to them, how we can do better in some areas, which ones we're really performing well at. And these, again, these just happen to be Amazon's. This didn't come from a stone tablet. This just happens to be Amazon's set of leadership principles. And in the context of innovation, which I'm here to talk to you about, there are the 3 that really stand out for me are the following. First and foremost is, I hope if you're an Amazon customer, you appreciate this. First and foremost is customer obsession. Everything we do in the company, including innovation, follows this customer obsession principle. And it manifests itself in the context of innovation, I think best, in what we call the working backwards doctrine. This is where, if we have an idea today, an idea for a new product or service that we want to deliver sometime in the future to our customers, maybe it's 3 months, 6 months, 5 years out, but if today we have this idea, we will write the press release announcing it to be released 3 months, 5 months, 6 years out. We will write the press release today. Well, what does that do for you? Well, first of all, it holds you accountable, right? How many times we've been to a meeting and you decide something, and then a few weeks later you say, well, that's kind of hard. That's worse than we really didn't mean that. Well, by writing it down, you hold yourself accountable. So you have that in your desk drawer, so you know what you're working on day in and day out. Second, because it is a press release, it's written in customer terms. It doesn't talk about how you're going to get this stuff to the customer, either a new product or service. It just says that you're going to get it to them. It's what's in it for them. It's in customer terms. It explains what's in it for them. And the how of doing it, you don't know in the first place, but customers really don't care that much either. They just want the new product or service. And lastly, I think this is probably the most subtle point of this, is that by doing this, you are admitting that what you want to do, provide to your customers, a service or product, is impossible today. You have to innovate. You have to invent to get to that point. Otherwise, you'd write the press release today and release it today, right? Or send it to your PR shop and they send it out in the morning. This is an admission that it can't be done today. It's an invitation to innovation and invention, because you're saying, okay, this is what we want to do for customers. We're going to release this sometime in the future, and working backwards from that day, we have to invent things that don't exist today. It's a really big challenge. Now, I had the opportunity to work on a couple of these over the years. Probably the most interesting is Amazon Prime Air. This is our future drone delivery service. And we're continuing to work on this. I was part of the small team that drafted the press release. And the focus of the press release isn't on all the cool technology. As cool as it is, and all kind of cool things that we're working on right now to make Amazon Prime Air a reality, it doesn't talk about that. What it talks about is making a delivery to a customer within 30 minutes of an order. That's prosaic. I mean, it's that simple. The customer, at some level, doesn't care. She just knows that when she orders something, in some cases, she wants it in 30 minutes or less. And this is a way of delivering it to her, getting that service to her. So we've worked backwards. We've got more work to be done. I mean, there is a lot of cool stuff. We're designing propellers and motors and better batteries and computer vision systems. All this stuff is going into making that reality of that 30-minute promise, right? That is the focus. That is the customer obsession. That's what we're doing it for. Here's another one. This is another cool thing that is I think you'll find interesting here, and I'll explain in particular why I find this video describing it very interesting. This is Amazon Go.
4 years ago, we started to wonder, what would shopping look like if you could walk into a store, grab what you want, and just go? What if we could weave the most advanced machine learning, computer vision, and AI into the very fabric of a store so you never have to wait in line? No lines, no checkouts, no registers. Welcome to Amazon Go. Use the Amazon Go app to enter. Then put away your phone and start shopping. It's really that simple. Take whatever you like. Anything you pick up is automatically added to your virtual cart. If you change your mind about that cupcake, just put it back. Our technology will update your virtual cart automatically. So, how does it work? We used computer vision, deep learning algorithms, and sensor fusion, much like you'd find in self-driving cars. We call it Just Walk Out technology. Once you've got everything you want, you can just go. When you leave, our Just Walk Out technology adds up your virtual cart and charges your Amazon account. Your receipt is sent straight to the app, and you can keep going. Amazon Go. No lines, no checkout. No, seriously.
So kind of cool. Thank you. I will tell you that the coolest thing to me about looking at that video is that you never see the technology at all. Right? All you do is see people going in and avoiding a checkout line. Think about this. For millennia, people have had this one way of shopping. They'll go and they'll get something, the loaf of bread, and then they have to wait to give money to the person who's selling that loaf of bread. And that's the way it's been done for thousands of years. And we just looked at that and said, that's a really lousy customer experience. Why do you have to wait to give money to somebody? It doesn't make sense. And so this just takes that bad customer experience and turns it into something that's much simpler. But it's all based on technology that people don't need to understand. It wasn't even shown in the video. I mean, so it's the kind of thing that customers don't care about and needn't care about, only that it works, that we've improved the customer experience. And so this is an example of how we worked backwards from a very difficult problem and had to invent a lot of things along the way. So the idea was we wrote the press release announcing this thing, this checkout-free shopping experience, and then we've had to invent all this stuff along the way to make it a reality. Okay, customer obsession. So what else in the leadership principles? This is actually how we describe it on the website. This is kind of cool. All these leadership principles are on the website. You can check them out if you want. And the hard thing here is not just obsessing over customers, but also just not paying attention to competitors. Right? A lot of enterprises think all the time about what their competitors are doing, and should we be doing what they're doing, and what are they working on, et cetera. And we're aware of competition, of course, but we don't obsess over competitors. We obsess over our customers. And our cloud computing business actually has this as a representation of customer obsession at AWS, Amazon Web Services. That's our cloud business. And it's this: launch is the starting line, not the finish line. And I like this a lot because it has two meanings. Meaning one is that you launch something and you continually improve it and make it better and so forth, and you're always taking care of your customers. But it's also, launch is that starting line for working backwards to the present. So it's both the going forward, but also the working backwards aspect of things. Okay, what else beyond customer obsession? The second one that I want to talk to you about is one that's actually kind of hard to hear. It's much easier to read, and it's this one. It's called "are right a lot." Are right, comma, a lot. Well, everybody wants to be right. No one wants to be wrong. It's, you know, stupidity should not be rewarded, but it doesn't say "are right." It doesn't say "are right" all of the time. It doesn't even say "are right" most of the time. It says "are right a lot," which means that in the context of innovation and experimentation, it's okay to be wrong a lot. Here's why. To innovate, you must experiment, right? To do something new, unless, again, you're particularly lucky and you just stumble across something, you actually have to try something new and experiment. And part of the confusion with this is that I'm a technical person, but you know, even non-technical people took a science class in high school, right? A biology class or chemistry or physics, and you did experiments, right? Well, those weren't actually experiments. Those were demonstrations of some experiment that probably was done decades, if not hundreds of years ago. You put something on a Bunsen burner, you pour something in and it turns blue. So that's not an experiment, because at least the teacher, and probably you, already knew how it was supposed to turn out. So you already knew it, and if you already know how something's going to turn out, that's not an experiment, and without experimentation, you can't innovate. You can't do that new thing. And so in the context of experimentation and innovation at Amazon, it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to fail, right? Failure is necessary if you're going to experiment and innovate. You has to be able to fail, or else it's not enough, something new. And so we've had some experience with failure. I've been part of some failures myself, but here's an example that really comes to mind. About the time I joined the company, late '99, early 2000, we had an auction site. Anybody remember this? It was an auction site. You know, those of us who do remember it saw something very fleeting, because it didn't last long. It was an abysmal failure for a lot of reasons. But when we introduced the auction site, we were heavily criticized by Wall Street. What are you doing? Why would you do this? You're a retailer. You sell stuff. Why would you allow somebody else to come into your store, your online store, and to undersell you and sell something used while you're trying to sell something new? The investor community thought this was nuts. But we thought it was a great idea for a couple of reasons. One, we would allow third parties to come in and provide additional selection to what we were able to offer for sale at retail. So third parties would come in and they would increase the amount of buyer selection available. Second, it would introduce a new kind of customer. These would be seller customers, sellers who could come in and use the physical plant that we had developed, the computer systems, the infrastructure, the back office, all that, they could make use of it. And so we get a new class of customers to serve. Well, it didn't work out, for a lot of reasons, but we tried something else to replace auctions. We introduced something called Z-Shops. Z-Shops, right? And what it was essentially a separate, segregated portion of our website where if you were a buyer customer, you could come in and you're looking, I don't know what, you're buying a particular pair of shoes, and you would search the Amazon offerings, and if you didn't find what you wanted, you went to this other part of the website to search there to see if a third party might be selling the same thing. Well, again, we were criticized by Wall Street. What are you doing? You're allowing people to sell new stuff in competition to your retail business. By the way, does this happen ever offline? I mean, what big department store can you walk into with a stack of stuff that you want to sell and put it on their shelves and say, I'm going to sell this right next to your stuff? It doesn't happen, right? There are reasons. It's not to be critical of them. I mean, they don't have unlimited shelf space. But this didn't work either, and it was largely because it was just inconvenient. Why would a customer come to our site looking for something, and she has to look in two places to find it? That's dumb. It should be in one place. So, undaunted, we finally introduced this, which is Marketplace. And this hopefully is familiar to many of you as Amazon customers. But the idea is that when you're searching for an item, in this case, a set of pots and pans, it's not only offered by Amazon, like right down here, it's offered by third parties up here, and there's a list of them down here. And notice something here. The one sold by Amazon is being offered, this is off our UK website, this is being offered for 140 pounds, but this seller up here is offering it for 133 pounds. So if you're a buyer customer, this is great. You got competition right on the website. You know that you're getting a better deal. It's £7 cheaper than from Amazon. So this has really worked out well for customers, and it turns out that now over half of the items sold through Amazon websites are not sold by Amazon. They're sold by somebody else. So this third party up here, the one with the 133-pound price, is going to get the sale there, and that's great for everybody. So it took us some experimentation, right? Most of the experimentation we do is not, foisted on customers, right? So this was experimentation that was external. Most of what we do is internal, but again, it was a willingness to fail to try to eventually get something really good for customers. Now, how do we decide what kinds of things we'll try? Well, we have another process internal to Amazon, which we call the 6-page narrative, and it goes along with a meeting. And let me explain this. When there's a proponent of a new idea at Amazon, a new service, a new product, the decision makers, whether they're mid-level people or senior or even the most senior people in the company, the decision makers will schedule an hour-long meeting for the proponent to make her case that this is a new product or service that we ought to try. And she, as the proponent, is required to write out a narrative describing her idea. It's a prose narrative. We don't allow outlines. We don't allow presentations that have bullet points. That's not the way we make decisions at Amazon. We actually force the proponent of an idea of a new product or service to write out a narrative. It can be as long as 6 pages, but no longer. And so how does this work? Well, first of all, it's a little bit harder for the proponent, right? It's much easier to write bullet points, isn't it? But it forces her to make decisions, to take a stand on things, and to actually think through everything that goes into the actual decision and write it out in prose. But it also does something else. What happens is the decision makers will schedule an hour-long meeting, and the first 30 minutes or so, 35 minutes, is spent in absolute silence. It's kind of creepy the first time you experience this, by the way. But you're all sitting there just reading the narrative. And so what does this do for you? It does several things. First of all, how many times have we been to a meeting where we've done the homework assignment and not everybody else did? Or somebody did the homework assignment on the subway into the office that morning and didn't really concentrate on it. Or somebody really was the eager beaver and did the assignment 3 weeks ago and now has forgotten what she read. So what this does, by everybody spending the first 30 minutes around that table just reading the narrative, everybody's on the same page. Everyone has everything fresh in their minds, and it just makes that last 25 or 30 minutes very productive. It's very easy to make decisions when everybody has just read the material. Plus, writing in narrative form, it also helps anticipate questions, right? So how many times have you been watching a presentation of some sort and you have a question about something on the first or second slide and you're like, God, I wish I had, what did she mean by there? What was his idea? I don't understand it. And then it's answered 7 slides later. Well, that's great, except you didn't concentrate on the intervening 3 or 4 slides at all. You were thinking about your question that finally was answered. But if you sit down there and read the narrative, you've got your answer by the end. Hopefully, the author has anticipated your question already. So that's the way we make big decisions at Amazon, and it turns out to be pretty effective. And obviously, it's something that you all could try as well. The only challenge, frankly, is getting people to write in prose. It's hard. It's harder to do than writing PowerPoint bullets, but it turns out to be a much better decision-making process. And there's something else about decisions at Amazon. We like to divide our decisions and the way we think about them into 2 kinds. One involves what we call a one-way door. I'm an electrical engineer, so I think about diodes. This is something where something can go through in one direction but can't go through the other. The concept is this. Some decisions that you make are almost impossible, or perhaps actually impossible, to reverse if they don't work out. Right? So you make a decision, you do something, and it's hard, if not impossible, to undo it. That is what we call a type 1 decision, a one-way door, a diode, whatever you prefer. But the idea is this. Those kinds of decisions you should really spend a lot of time making, gathering as much information as possible. Try to get that 95 or 100% of the information available on it, and then make the decision. Because if you do it, and it turns out not to work, turns out to fail, you can't undo it. But it turns out that's the vast majority of decisions in a big enterprise are not that kind of decision. They're ones that if you do it and it turns out not to work, you can undo it and just step back. And these kinds of decisions, you don't want to emphasize the information gathering. You want to emphasize speed. because if it doesn't work out, you want it to fail fast. Right? Failing over a long period of time is not a good thing. Failing fast is fine if you're experimenting. And so these decisions you want to make quickly, and we say something like 2/3 or 70% of the information that you wish you had, go ahead and make the decision. Make it now, because if it turns out not to work, turns out to fail, you can undo it. And so this is the way we sort of think about decision making. And this, by the way, that kind of decision making happens all the time in any large enterprise. You want to do this quickly, and it turns out that large enterprises fall into the trap of trying to get all the available information for every decision, even ones that are reversible. To us, that's a big mistake. And it turns out over the years, I mean, we've made obviously a whole lot of decisions and a lot of mistakes. We'll continue to take some very big bets, and I'll tell you about the bets in a second, but it turns out that the third of the leadership principles I think are particularly important in the context of innovation. This is the way we say it. Oh, this is really cool. This is the description that's on our website. This is for the leadership principle, our right a lot. It says, leaders have strong judgment, good instincts, blah, blah. They seek diverse perspectives. And look at this, the last 6 words there. And work to disconfirm their beliefs. Think about that. That doesn't mean it's okay to fail or for someone else to show that you have failed. You actually are required to try to make your idea fail. Right? This is like science. Science does not prove things right. Einstein has not been proved right, despite all these experiments over all the past century. Newton has been proved wrong, but Einstein has not been proven right. Same idea for business decisions. You try to make your idea fail. And if you can't make it fail, despite repeated attempts, then you can feel fairly confident that it's a good idea. And so here, as part of being right a lot, you actually are required to make your own ideas, required to try to make your own ideas fail. And if they don't fail, again, you can feel fairly confident in them. So there's customer obsession, our right a lot. The third, and the last of the 3 that I'll highlight for you today, is this one. It's easily the most prosaic. It's this: deliver results. All of the obsessing over customers, all the being right a lot, all the innovation on their behalf means not a whit to them unless the results are delivered. So you actually have to follow through and do it. And over the years, we've had some products and services that we think our customers like pretty much, and these are a handful of them. These are things we've actually delivered on over the years. And some of these are really big bets. Amazon Prime, which you may be aware of, it's a subscription service that allows faster shipping speeds and now a lot of other things like availability of audio and video content and such. It's a great benefit to customers, but man, we were uncertain about it when it started. We didn't know if it was going to work. And it did work, which is great. But I think one of the things that goes along with failure in the context of innovation, and especially in any large enterprise, is that a few successes pay for a lot of failures. Contrast this to sports. Say you've got a football match, and the best team in the league has all its players healthy. They go into the game and they're all ready to go, and they're playing one of the worst teams in the league with their best player is injured. And what's the results of the game? Well, the really good team with all its players healthy wins. What do they get? 1 win. That's it. It doesn't work that way in business. You can have victories that don't provide just 1 win. They can provide 100 wins, 1,000 wins, 100,000 wins. So you have a few of those, and that way you can make up for a lot of losses along the way. We'll continue to make big bets like Amazon Prime or AWS, our cloud computing business. But what we never will do is bet the company. And this is a problem for a lot of large enterprises who have been successful for many years, where they have a particular product or service that has worked well for them and for their customers. But what happens when some new idea from someone else comes along and undermines that product or service they've been relying on? Suddenly they've got to innovate. Suddenly they have to go do something quick, because we're going to be undercut by this competitor. And if they do invent something and it works, that's great. But what are the chances of that happening? What are the chances of them being on that one time that they tried to innovate that it's going to work? More likely than not, they've ended up betting the company and it's not going to work. We don't ever want to be in that position, so that's why continuous innovation is so important, where you just keep trying things, keep always going, knowing that you're going to have a lot of failures along the way, but hopefully having a few big successes as well. So deliver results. And again, I hope that this is not settling is a big piece of this, right? You try and you try and you never settle. And again, bringing that innovation to customers is ultimately what they care about. So here they are, customer obsession, I'll write a lot, and deliver results. I mentioned these innovation methods you can try. They're embedded in what I've been talking about for a while here, but the three easy ones are these. Try the two-pizza team. If you're a large enterprise or a medium-sized enterprise, what's the harm in bringing together a group of individuals, roughly a half dozen or so? Second, do the press release and FAQ. There is absolutely no reason why everyone in this room can't have at least one of these in their desk drawer, even if it's never released. Even if it never goes out as a press release, you have in your drawer how you would explain to your customers what you're working on today. Why are you doing what you're doing at work today? And everybody can have one. So I've got several in my drawer of my desk, and I think one of them stands a very good chance of actually being released as a press release. The other 3 or 4, depending on how you count, probably never will. But they keep me focused. Why am I doing what I'm doing at the office today? And if you can't explain to your customers why you're doing what you're doing at the office today, that's another problem, right? That's a significant problem. But by having written it in their terms, you could, if you bumped into a customer on the elevator, whoever your customer may be, and the customer asks you, what are you working on and what's in it for me, you should be able to explain it to them very, very simply. The third easy thing to try is do the 6-pager in a meeting when you go and make a decision, when you're facing a major decision by your board, your management team, whatever. Try writing it in a narrative. It's you might the proponent of the decision might end up resenting it a little bit because people don't necessarily want to write a 6-page narrative, but doing it will benefit him. That proponent will actually get something out of that, or that person will be forced to think about things and be prepared in that meeting for the tough question from the boss. Because if you're sitting up there with a PowerPoint trying to get the boss to make a decision, and the boss asks you a question and you haven't anticipated it, that's pretty bad, right? That you don't want to be in that spot. But if you've written it out in a narrative, you almost certainly will have anticipated the question and already answered it. Easy things to try. I encourage you to give it a whirl. And if they don't work for you, that's fine too. I mean, again, this is just the way Amazon does it, but you might try it. Then the 3 hard things. These are the ones I acknowledge are hard. First is not focusing on competitors. So much of the way business is set up in the United States and elsewhere in the West is that there's just this obsession about competitors. And if you can just kind of set that aside and really focus on your customers instead, it'll inure to your benefit and certainly to theirs. One thing is you should think about is, remember I talked about how you write that press release and you're anticipating providing this new product or service months or years in the future? Well, when we announce it, the new product or service, if someone else wants to copy that, they're already 6 months, 2 years, 3 years behind, because we already had this idea today, and they're going to have to pay that much time. And so likewise with us, if we see a new product or service come out of a competitor, they've been working on this for a long time. I mean, you think about sometimes the quarterly results. There's a lot of focus on that, and somebody that company X had a really good quarter. Well, maybe they had a good quarter financially, but the good quarter was based on decisions they made years ago. It wasn't what they did in this quarter. It was something that they decided to do a long time ago, and it's now showing up. All right, another hard one is that's our write a lot idea. Be willing to fail. Now, this is a hard one for a lot of enterprises. Because no individual really wants to fail unless they know that it's okay to fail. So this is one I feel like it has to come from the top down, and Jeff has been clear about this for all my 18 years with the company. That is, you got to try, you got to be willing to fail, because otherwise you're not experimenting or innovating. But that is I get that's hard in a lot of enterprise cultures. And lastly is actually do what you set out to do. Actually send out the press release and provide it to your customers. And again, that's not easy either, right? So you actually have to follow through and do what you wrote down. And so if you have written all this down in a press release and you can put it out in the future, and you've done all the things that you wanted to do for your customers, and you've written and you're sending it out, that's a huge success for them and for you as well. So Innovation at Amazon, I thank you for your attention on this. I hope it was helpful. And if you do find that some of these things you tried, I'd love to hear about it. I mean, you can let John know, and he'll let me know. So thanks very much, everyone. Thank you very much.
Like that?
Yeah.